Welcome back to another episode of The Magnetic Goddess. I'm your host, Amy Lee Westervelt. Today, I have an awesome guest joining me. Monika Todd is here. She's a personal brand and social media coach. She's got the most incredible energy. She is magnetic AF, and I can't wait for you guys to meet her. Welcome, Monika.
Hello, amazing. Oh, I'm so glad I'm here.
I'm so glad you're here too. It's so great to have you. So let me start off by putting you on the spot because let's be real. What do you think, Monika, makes you a magnetic goddess?
I would say it's the energy. And this is something I never thought about intentionally. It's just kind of how I am. I'm a bit of a high vibe person, and a lot of people love it. Not everyone, you can't please everyone. But I think it just came naturally. And when I jumped into the personal development world and the mindset work and all that things, then it kind of started, I started to learn about it. And it's kind of amazing when you do something and then you learn about it and you're like, oh, that's how it works. So I would definitely say it's linked to my high vibe energy that I don't know, I don't even have explanation, it just comes naturally for me. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. I think that you have a very unique energetic signature that just kind of like announces you before you're even there, right? Like when you first came onto the broadcast, it's like you could feel you even before we were like in the room together. And I think that that's a really cool thing. And so speaking of energetic signatures, what you do is personal branding and social media, which to be honest, I love both of those things, and yet they both intimidate me a lot. I think that for me, I have such a hard time putting myself into a container. I don't want to say a box because it's not a negative thing. It's just that I have difficulty defining myself sometimes. And I wondered, what is your advice for women out there who, like us, are just so much energy and feel like they have a hard time figuring out what they are and what they're not, and how do they distill that down? And maybe even some advice for me, how do they distill that down into who they want to show up as?
Honestly, I think it's normal that we don't know, like, what should we call ourselves? Even like you asked me before we started, it's like, my title, I'm like, I don't like to also name myself as a title because it's just me. But I know in the world that we live in entrepreneur world, okay, we stand for something and we do something. When I jump into entrepreneurship, I didn't even know you can be a coach. Like I had a coach in my corporate business, but I didn't know you can be a coach and you can have a business as a coach. That's not what I did. And I think the best advice I could do, you do what you feel at the time is the right thing. Try different things. And actually the path will take you where you're meant to be, because that's where you get drawn into. The reason I became personal branding coach, it's because the brand that I built. It wasn't that I left my corporate job and I decided I'm going to be a personal brand coach. It is the brand that I built. And then the people ask a question, how do you do it? But how did you do it? And the social media part is because I did it through social media. So I think a lot of the time, especially for anyone who's jumping into entrepreneurship, there is that pressure of define your niche, define your ideal client. And it's like they stop before they start because I don't have a clue. And most of the time, not always, it's normal. Unless you start doing things, putting yourself out there, talking to people, have conversation, have some clients, see, and that is the best way to define, okay, this is the stuff that I absolutely love doing. That is what I want to stick with. And for me, just branding landed on my lap because that's what I did with me. And social media is how I did it, through the platforms that I kind of got myself out there and met amazing people like you, because otherwise we wouldn't have met. So I would say try different things for anyone who's kind of like stuck in that zone. try different things. What sets your heart on fire? What are the things? It's not about what we should be doing. It's about what is it that you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
instead of
What
putting
do
out.
you, I love that. What do you think is gained by having a personal brand? Meaning you have two coaches or two healers or two service providers side by side. One has a distinctive brand, what doesn't? What do you feel are the highlights of someone who has those pieces in place versus someone who doesn't necessarily prioritize that or think that it's important?
I think it's
She's like, well,
when one of them is going to say, I'm launching an invisible offer, everyone jumps into it. When there is a change in direction, because sometimes we do change a direction, there is maybe part of our business that doesn't set our soul on fire and we go into slightly different direction, you still have your community with you because of you, not because of the product or offer that you have been selling, but because of you. And that is the power of personal brand. There is almost that permission to, you can change, you can shift, you can pivot, doesn't matter, because you've branded you as the person, and it's your energy as well.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that for me, I fall in love with a person's brand and energy before I ever look at what they're actually selling. Like I'm like, okay, I want to buy this person. And then I decide what offer of theirs I want to do. And I know you alluded to one in particular, right? Like, let's bring her up as an example, like Melanie and Layer. Everybody talked about who she was. And I was like, okay, I don't really know this lady. I listened to a couple minutes of her live. I'm like, I don't know. And then just because I have ADHD and it took me a while to get into it, right? And then, she came out with this one thing that I am the one or whatever it was. And it was like, yep, like, and from that moment on, it was like, I could identify her simply by her brand. Like if she wasn't even in a picture and somebody was like, here's 5 pictures, which one is her? I would know in a heartbeat. And I
Yeah.
think that when your brand speaks for itself, when it conveys the energy, the emotion, the values, really the values are a big piece that people miss in their personal branding. In fact, let's talk about that in a second. But when you lead with all of that, you get to say so much less. It's almost like, that idea of the picture is worth 1,000 words. The brand is the picture.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
the vibe that the person creates. And that's why the personal branding is so key when it comes to running a business online. Because the thing is, you don't want to box yourself into one product or one offer. And people know that and don't know you, don't know who's behind it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And plus, personal branding, strong personal brand opens up so many doors that you don't even imagine exist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I get so many compliments on my website. I mean, I have the most epic web designer, but like people will be like, who did your website? Oh my gosh, your website is so, and I'm just like, yeah, because it's cohesive, because we picked some colors, we stuck with them, we used them throughout. And so that brings me to my next question. What would you define personal brand as? Like, what are the components of that and what aren't included in there? Because maybe there's some things that people are like, oh, it means I've got to go get a big photo shoot, or, oh, it means that I need to rent a Lamborghini, or, oh, it means that I need to get business cards. Like, what would you say are the key components of personal branding, and what's not included?
I think there is a big misconception between business branding and personal branding. And that's why oftentimes when people talk about, I need to build my brand, they talk about, I need to build my website, I need to build my logo. I can't do anything because I haven't got my logo already. Stop it. Logo is not what people are going to buy. It's you. So the way that I kind of work with my clients is, the values are a massive component of it. It's like, what are your values? Now, our values do change. As we grow, our circumstances change, our life changes, we've got a kids, and the values change, and that's fine, but we need to know what is it that our values are at this moment in time, because they are going to define our decisions. And the thing is, everything we're going to decide going forward, are they matching with our values that we set at this moment? And also our identity. So who is it that we want to become, and actually striving to be that person now? And that links to, what is it that you want? And I find very often, a lot of the time, I get people who come to me because I come across also as a very practical person. And they think that, oh, just give me the strategy. Just give me the strategy, give me the tactic. And it's like, what is it that I need to do on each platform? I said, look, I can give you the strategy. I can give you the tactics. I can give you the ways to hack algorithm and, all that jazz. But unless you have fundamentals of your personal branding sorted, which is, what's your values? What's your identity? What is it that is your vision that you're striving to achieve? It's pointless. And then you wonder, oh, why I didn't get what you said I will on Instagram. That's why I never promise any numbers, because it is those fundamentals that it's uncomfortable, because it's like, okay, I need to sit again with my piece of paper and write my vision, my mission. I wrote it down so many times, but writing things down and doing them, putting it into action, are two different things. And I think I've done it so many times as well in the past. So every time I started to work in any containers or any coach, it was basically, okay, what is it that you want? And you kind of write things down. But I think only probably maybe in the last 2 years, I started actually diving much deeper into, what the heck do I really want? What is it do I want? Do I really want to spend my day on Zoom every day? I love having conversations, but I'm not sure if I want to have 6 Zooms a day. But that's those things we don't take into account. So I think that's then you build into, is like, what is it that you want? What is it truly that your vision of that amazing life looks like? And that is the foundation that you build on the rest, the visuals of your brand. What is it that your offers are? Who is it that you want to work with? And all those things, like problems that you solve, niche that you have. But first, let's start with you. So that is always the first piece.
It's so funny you say that. I remember having a client who wanted to have a $25,000 a month boutique, right? She had clothes, she had them in house. Like it wasn't a brick and mortar, but it was like out of her house, and it was not drop ship. And I was like, you do realize that means 8 hours, 5 days a week of you shipping. Like you are literally going to spend 40 hours a week stuffing things in a bag. Like, and if that's what you want, that's okay. But like, this is what we have to map out, right? Like if you're looking at it logistically from, this is the outcome I want, well, then you've got to work backwards to all of the components that get there. But if instead you look at it, like, as I say, from the dream design approach, where it's like, what feeling do I want to create? What emotion, what state do I want to be in? And then I work backwards from there. That's a very different energy, because now there's 150,000 components that could fit into that, right? There's 1,000 different ways that could go, versus, well, it's got to be this, and it's got to be the boutique, and it's got to be. And so the same thing with personal branding, right? It's like, okay, well, how do you want to feel from your brand, and how do you want others to feel? Yeah. Okay, so what if I told you that will happen? Are you as attached to how it is? Are you attached to whether it's 10,000 people on Instagram? Are you attached to whether or not it's because a YouTube blew up? Are you attached to whether or not it's because a podcast did great, or because you did a collaboration? No, I really don't care, because I want the end result. That's where the magic happens. And I think a lot of people get stuck on, okay, but let me go to Fiverr and figure out like what I want. And that's fun. And like, even as little kids, when we're playing house or we're playing teacher, like all the things the little girls do, my daughter did it too. she came down the other day and she's like, Mom, I made my first newspaper. And I'm like, I remember doing that, because you're starting to get the feel of like, this is the signature that represents this thing. And those things are wonderful. But if there's nothing underneath it, if there's no foundation, and I know this from experience, what ends up happening is you've got these beautiful visuals, and there's nothing to sustain it. And so you're constantly reinventing yourself, constantly oh, well, actually, no, this is outside of that. Well, oh, I liked that too. And then you're like redoing your colors and your fonts and your who knows what, and you're evolving so quickly. Whereas, and I see this a lot too. And tell me, if you agree, in multi-level marketing, people don't personal brand. Then they leave their multi-level marketing business. Now all of a sudden they've been overshadowed by their company brand. They're no longer there. And so it's like they disappeared. Whereas the ones that get smart create their own brand, heaven forbid their company goes under, heaven forbid they pivot, they've still got that personal brand. And it's really all it is the vendors are changing, but the
Yes.
energy of the signature of the brand is the same. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely. And I think multi-level marketing is an amazing example, because there are people who switching different brands to different companies. And if you haven't got personal brand, people will know you for that only brand. That's it.
Right.
And that is not what you want, because you cannot, the only person you can rely on is you. No one else. You cannot guarantee certain brand will not go under. You cannot. The one person you should bet on is you. So that's why that personal branding, plus additional to it. And I think what's amazing, and I love watching some of the entrepreneurs out there, is going against what's the norm. I think we sometimes get swooped by just like, oh, this person doing this way, so I need to do it this way because they're successful, so I'm going to achieve the same success. Actually, yes, I think sometimes it's good to follow some steps, some proven steps. Success leaves clues. But unless you put your own spin that matches what is it that you want, that's why oftentimes it doesn't work. Or you feel like, I hate that. I remember a few years ago, I joined a group coaching program, and I've learned to let it go, and I took responsibility from it. But I have to admit, there was the things I was doing. I'm very coachable. And at that time, I just did what I meant to do, literally step by step. But a lot of it was literally cold messaging people, inviting them to my Facebook group. I cringe every single time I send them.
Are you a generator?
Pardon?
What's your human design?
Generator.
Yeah, I could tell.
And like, I was just like, what am I doing?
Not responding. That is not responding.
No, and I was just like, but I did it because I've invested in it, and I was told this works, and I tried it. And do you know what? I've realized it does work for some people. And I get it.
You know what? It can work. I mean, prostitution works too. Like they make wonderful money standing on the corner offering their bodies, and no shame to anybody who does that for a living, but like that's not my route. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And to me, I feel, and this is going to get a lot of flack, and you know what, guys, get over it. I feel like selling myself in the DMs to people who didn't come to me first is business prostitution.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm taking that term, taking away. But
take it, it's probably a lot safer in your hands than mine.
But that is why, don't just rely, just because it works for one person, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because you've got different values, you've got different vision, and you've got different way of how you want to run the business.
Right.
And just go against the norm, try it. Why? There's nothing that's going to say it's not going to work. And it's like 2 months ago, I launched for the first time, because I'm born in Poland, so I'm Polish. And throughout the pandemic and the time of the lockdowns, I actually gained a lot of Polish audience as well, because I just got into virtual networking, into Polish groups. And I decided to do the first program in Polish 2 months ago. And I did it in a completely different way than everyone told me to do it. The usual ways, we jump on a Zoom, we have a calls, group calls and stuff like that. And I was inspired by Mary Morgan actually to do a Voxer broadcast. And that's how I delivered the program for a month and a half through Voxer broadcast. And everyone loved it. And that is why foundations is key. And then what is that unique thing about you that actually there is something you want to get to the surface? Just get it out there, do things differently. That is the beauty of, if you have your own business, you're the boss. You decide. No one's going to tell you you can't do it a certain way because that's not the rules. Who sets the rules? You set the rules.
That's such a good point too, because, you know, people are like, oh, I know you only work with entrepreneurs. And I'm like, no, here's why I work with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs can't be, they don't want to be led. They don't want somebody to tell them what to do. It's entrepreneurial spirit that works well with me. It's not, you don't even have to have your own business. Like, it's more about, are you a person who just doesn't seem to get along with other people, who's, you know, so emotionally aware that sitting in a cubicle like drives you nuts because you think the person next to you is mad, or, you know, you're feeling all their emotions. Like, it has less to do with whether or not you want to put together a business and more to do with the energy of whether or not you want to be a cog in a wheel, or you want to be, you know, the leader and the innovator and the visionary. And I think that is really kind of where society is going, right? Like, we're becoming so much more individualized, and the individuality as a collective, we're recognizing that we're all unique fingerprints on one big, beautiful centipede of a hand, right? And so I think that it's really powerful, the work that you do, because you bring people that awareness of like, and again, like, let's bring human design into it, because human design is the study of differentiation, right? It's all about what makes us different. What better way to highlight and to enumerate the differences of people than for everybody to have their own brand, whether you have a business or not, right? Like, even if it's just who you are. I mean, how many people do you know who work in corporate or work in retail, but you know they love coffee? You know they're always going to post pictures of dogs that need to be adopted. You know that their favorite color is purple. Like, you have a personal brand, even if you don't necessarily have a business brand. And so I think it's really powerful, the work that you're doing, and helping people bring forward the essence of their individuality in preparation for service to the collective, which I think is so beautiful.
Yes. And actually, I totally agree on corporate as well. If you are employed, if yes, we talk about entrepreneurial world and entrepreneurs, but actually, you know, even if you work for someone, you can't just rely you'll be there forever. Build your own brand. Build your own presence, build your own network of people.
Log, a journal, your cover photo, your business cards, whatever the case may be, something that reminds you that you're an individual, that you're not part of an entity. You are your own energetic signature, just like Monika is, and how she came in here with this incredible energy, and you guys are all like doing your laundry or like your dishes, and you're like, hold on, I gotta stare at my phone for a second, because it's just, the energy is so overwhelmingly beautiful, and it's energy you want to calibrate to, you know, and those are the people that you guys should continue to follow. Which, speaking of follow, that was like the best segue ever. How do people follow you? How do they get in touch with you? How can they get more goodies from you? Tell us all the things.
The best way to find me is on Instagram under Monika Todd 11. Unfortunately, Monika Todd was taken, so I had to add funky number at the end.
It's a good number.
But it's a good number, I think, Monika Todd 11, or all over Facebook as well. And actually, what from Instagram is almost like a signpost to everywhere else you want to go, whether you want the Polish language or English language.
I love it. I love it so much. I was looking at my ancestry yesterday, and I have ancestors in Poland. I'm not sure where. I'll have to find out. I know, I literally had it pulled up, and I was showing my kids, and we've got family in Russia, and we've got family in Israel, and we've got family in South Africa. And if I was to message any of them, they would be like, who are you? You're what level of cousin? Like, are you trying to tell me that, you know, like, are you like one of those scammers? We're not going to message them. But it was just interesting because I was looking at Poland today. Anyway, thank you, Monika, for being here. It has been such a slice of heaven. You absolutely are a magnetic goddess. I'm so glad that you were here with us. You guys follow her, love on her, give her all of your, you know, go get some of that juicy energy from her, because it's beautiful. I'm here. I'm witnessing it. Don't take my word for it. Go get some of your own. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And that'll do it for this week's episode of The Magnetic Goddess. Until next time, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, and may you be at peace. Namaste.